Good morning, Wellspring Church. It is so good to be with you and to be able to fill in with Eric today. And so I want to start off today's message going a little different and going into the movie of WALL-E. And what's crazy is the movie opens up, for a kids movie, it's kind of depressing a little bit, but it opens up and the planet is just completely destroyed and ravaged by pollution. Humanity's nowhere in sight, and we're introduced to a small robot named WALL-E. WALL-E goes on this galactic adventure through the universe, essentially to find humanity and bring them back home. And there's this pinnacle moment that happens in the story of WALL-E. It is when the captain of the ship that has the remnants of humanity in it decides that he's going to stand up and fight to bring humanity back home to Earth and rediscover their purpose. In this scene, he starts to get pretty curious about Earth. He looks over and decides to research what the mountains, what the Earth, what humanity's culture was like, and he starts to see that there is this purpose that humanity had, that it was more than just riding on chairs and having a screen in front of your face. And it leads him to saying that I don't want to survive, I want to live. And it launches them on this mission to bring humanity back home. And I think if we're honest, that resonates within us, that we're not made to simply survive. We are made to live. And today we're going to look at that. But here's my fear, is that for about 8 months now, coronavirus has ravaged the planet. It has defined every moment for us. It has defined what business looks like, what work looks like. It's oozed its way into our family life. It's even decided to decide what schools are going to do. And so it seems like there has just been this aspect where we're saying there's this new normal. The COVID virus has created a new normal for us because it's managed to infiltrate every single area of our life. There's no hiding from it. Meeting with that is that elections are coming in November, and things are already starting to get pretty heated. Mixed in with that is that it seems like there's a lot of civil unrest and people on every side of the spectrum on what to do. And so I think it's really easy for us to go into survival mode, not trying to live, and to loosen our grip on our purpose. And so in this all-encompassing climate, that we are faced with today, it is leading us to want to, I know for me, it's leading me to want to hide like a turtle in my shell, waiting for the danger to pass. And then once that danger passes, I am willing to live. Once this moment comes through, then is this chance for me to live. Instead of fighting like a warrior, instead of trying to fight for my purpose, I'm hiding like a turtle, waiting for the moment of danger to pass. And here's what I think is that survival is this loosening of our grip on purpose. It is the retreat of our soul. And many times we find ourselves being the victim of our circumstances, allowing our circumstances to determine who we're going to be and what we're going to do. And I think Jesus is calling us to live. And to live is to hold on to our purpose, to know that life has meaning and that we are to bravely fight each day for our soul. But it doesn't seem like life always goes that way. It seems like there's difficulty and crisis and hurt around each corner. And if we're not careful, we end up being the turtle that waits for danger to pass and then to live. But if we're honest, those moments don't come too much. Many times, it seems like we go from bad situation to bad situation to bad situation. Because of that, I think that the story of Joseph has some great points that we can learn about how to follow Jesus and how to capture back not just surviving, but actually living. In Joseph's story, it actually starts off pretty messed up. Joseph's life starts off with him being one of 12 brothers. His dad makes it known that Joseph himself is the favorite of all of the family. He makes sure to get him a robe that's really nice. to make sure to tell everybody else and every other brother and every other family member that Joseph is my favorite. Well, this doesn't really settle well with his brothers or with the other family members. And then one day, Joseph has a dream. Let's read that in Genesis 37, 5 through 10. It says, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. They didn't just start hating him, they hated him all the more. And he said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, and then suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, and while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brother said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. Joseph's dream centers on the fact that his brothers were going to bow down to him, that his brothers were going to be less than him to some extent. Well, his brothers already hated him, and they didn't really like that answer. And so Joseph decides to tell his family, and his family pushes back really hard. And how his brothers responds, not in a good way. His brothers get together, and they decide what they're going to do about Joseph. See, they hate him so much, they're going to do something pretty crazy. A couple of the brothers decide that they would like to kill Joseph, because that's a normal response, I guess. But the other brothers decided, yeah, that's a little bit too extreme. Let's sell him into slavery. Again, what kind of response is that? But that's where Joseph finds himself in the midst of this family that is not in a loving situation, but seems to be hating him. And so that's where the story continues. But before we do, I want you to see that Joseph's dream is so life-changing, so impactful, that he decides to tell his family. Joseph has a unique dream and a unique purpose that God has given him. He doesn't know what that's going to play out and look like, but he knows it's coming. And it's against this backdrop that the whole story and life of Joseph starts to unfold. So from every moment here that we're going to talk about this story, I want to keep in the back of your brain that Joseph had a dream where his brothers are going to bow down to him. And so that's how everything starts to unfold. And here's what I want to encourage you with. That you were made for a unique purpose. The same God that gave Joseph a unique dream and a unique purpose is the same God that is giving each of us and you your unique dream and purpose. God has gifted you with certain strengths and certain weaknesses and certain things that you're just excited about and passionate about. And all of those things make you you. And his charge to you, his purpose to you, is for you to share what he is like in a way that is completely unique to you. In a way that no one else can. That is your purpose that God has given you. It is a unique purpose because God loves you and entrusts you to share him to everybody else in a way that only you can. And so we're going to start off in this journey. So look, in Joseph's life, he gets thrown into a pit soon after. His brothers decide, you know what, let's go ahead and sell him into slavery. They throw him into a pit. And then they sell him to slavers, and he finds himself hundreds of miles away in the nation of Egypt, sold to the captain of the Pharaoh's guard, and his name is Potiphar. Well, he's there, and he decides to make the most of the moment, trusting that God has a dream, and that God has given him a dream and a purpose, and he holds tightly onto that, and he starts to work and be very diligent, and Potiphar's house starts to flourish. So this is the amazing part for Potiphar. Right, that his life has gotten better since Joseph has been working for him. And now Potiphar sets him above all of his house, and now he's running every aspect of Potiphar's house for him. And then Joseph meets danger. Potiphar's wife has the hots for Joseph. She decides that she wants to try to sleep with Joseph. Joseph, being the outstanding guy that he is, decides, no, I'm not going to do it. And so she corners him one day. He runs out, and as he's running out, she grabs the robe and pulls it off of him, and he runs. Well, she decides that if Joseph's not going to sleep with him or with her, then she's going to make his life miserable. So she goes to her husband Potiphar and says, Joseph tried to force himself on me. Potiphar, rightly outraged, throws him into the Pharaoh's jail. Now, this isn't just a normal prison. This is saved especially for the enemies of the Pharaoh and those closest to him. So this prison is made to be worse than any kind of normal other prison. And so Joseph finds himself, and he's there interpreting dreams. In your life, you find yourself many times standing up with a God-given purpose, excited about what God is doing. You run and then you hit a wall. You hit a wall. And you're looking up and you're wondering, what am I doing here? Wondering, why has God given me this purpose? You're excited. You remember starting the race with excitement, stepping out in faith, thinking that 2020 was going to be your year. This was going to be the year that God grew your faith. This was going to be the year that your family started to expand and buy a home, or maybe have more children, or whatever it was for you. You're going to get a promotion. And now it seems as though all of that has been set aside. You stepped out in faith and you took something new. You started off on a new adventure. And now all of this is hit, and probably more for you. And you're standing and you're wondering, what am I doing? What is next for me? And Joseph has some great themes that start to come through in his life that I think can encourage us. And here it is in Genesis 39, 2-3. This is right when he gets sold into slavery. It says, the Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered and lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, he set him over his house. Isn't that amazing? Now look at this. And this is after he's sent to prison. It says, but while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden, so that the warden put Joseph in charge of all those that held in the prison and was made responsible for all those that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Did you catch that? So both times Joseph meets a crisis in a difficult situation, and both times Joseph stands up and starts working in the everyday and changing life, and now he's set both times to be over, one for Potiphar's house and now the prison. And here's the thing that I want you to catch is because the Lord was with him, even though he met hardship after hardship and pain after pain, being betrayed time and time and time again, he now sees himself serving and trusting God. And here's what I think we can learn is this, that crisis can define our purpose, or that our purpose can define our crisis. We can either allow our difficult circumstances to determine who we're going to be and to be the victim of our circumstances, or we can stand up and hold tightly and say, I'm going to live and allow my purpose to shine through in any circumstance that I come through. No matter what I'm facing, it is because I am trusting in the Lord, not my situation, not the circumstances that are there. I know that God is with me. And here's what I want to encourage you with today, that God is with you. He has not forgotten you. As you're sitting and you've ran into this wall of 2020, you've run into difficulty after difficulty and situation after situation, and you see like you're the turtle that's hiding in your shell, waiting for the danger to pass, Jesus is with you. God is there. He has not forgotten you. He's given you a great purpose. And I want you to see this in Romans 8:28. It says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. God has not left you. He is working to redeem your situation for good. If you don't believe me, continue to look at Joseph's life. Eventually, Joseph is still in prison, but the Pharaoh starts to have some pretty crazy dreams. It seems like nightmare after nightmare. He's so freaked out by this that it's not just some crazy one-time dream, that he gathers all of his mages and all of his wise people and he tells them the dream. But I'm going to pause. So if you just saw that, we had a huge lightning storm just roll through. So we had to stop recording, and now we're back. But let's go ahead and continue to watch Joseph's story unfold. So as I was saying, the Pharaoh's had nightmare after nightmare, bad dream after bad dream, and he's really freaked out. So he gathers all of his scholars, he gathers all of his mages, and he pulls them into a room and he tells them the dream. Well, nobody can answer him. Nobody can give him what his dream truly means. And so the Pharaoh is freaking out. The cupbearer, who was a prison mate of Joseph, comes to the Pharaoh and he says, look, I know of a guy that might be able to help you. And as a last-ditch effort, Pharaoh sends for Joseph. Joseph comes in, the spotlight's on him, everybody's watching him. The most powerful man in the world is looking at him, and he says, look at this in Genesis 41:16. This is what he says. He says, I cannot do it. This moment where his dream can be realized, he says, I cannot do it. Let's keep reading. He says, Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give the Pharaoh the answer that he desires. Joseph is telling the Pharaoh that, look, I can't give you the answers you're looking for, but God can. Jesus has walked with me through difficult situation, bad situation. He has helped me time and time and time again, and I know that he can help you. In this moment when the spotlight is on him and he can sidestep God and make it all about him and all about his purpose, he does it. We can see that Joseph is actually changed. This bratty kid who was the favorite of his family, who was pretty prideful, through each difficult circumstance, we can see that his heart has changed, and now he's saying, oh, look, I can't do it, but God can. He's changed. And what's the beautiful thing is that his dream is starting to be realized, because now he gives the Pharaoh the interpretation of the dream, and the Pharaoh sets him out to be the second most powerful man in Egypt and perhaps the world. And so now Joseph is going about working to help other people. And here's the beautiful part about Joseph's dream. Joseph only saw a part of it, but he didn't really see what it was about and what it would actually mean. He just knew that his brothers would bow down to him. And now we see that as God has worked in the difficult circumstances, as Joseph has held on to this purpose and not allowed his circumstances to define who he's going to be and to determine what his life is going to be about, we see that he comes to this section in this saga of his life, and now his purpose is to help others. His purpose is actually to save thousands and thousands of people because a bad drought has hit. That was what the Pharaoh's dream was all about. And so now he goes about saving people. And you can see that the difficult circumstances that God walked with him through that and brought him through, that he had not abandoned him, he had not forgotten him. And now Joseph walks on through the other side as a changed man. And God is with you. He has not forgotten you. He has not abandoned you. And now he's saying, look, there's going to come a time when the danger is done, the difficult circumstances are through. My purpose for you will be realized. In that moment, what are you going to do? When the spotlight is on you and everyone is looking, are you going to keep your purpose all about yourself? Or are you going to change it and say, look, this is what God has done for me? Are you going to step into that purpose? Or are you going to sidestep it and make it about ourselves? And so Jesus is calling you and saying, look, I've got a grand purpose. I've got a grand mission for you. I've created you to be uniquely you and to do something that only you can. When that purpose is realized within you, how are you going to respond? Whose attention are you going to bring people to? Your attention? And the spotlight's going to be on me? Or is this attention going to be on yourself or on God? Is your attention going to be more focused in on Jesus? And I think that we see Joseph's change because he saw that God was with him. It allowed him to focus in on the day-to-day. It allowed him for God being with him to ooze into every section of his life. That his purpose was something grander, something bigger than the situation he was facing. Let's keep going. If we fast forward, Joseph's family does eventually actually come to Egypt. They do move to Egypt because they're trying to escape the drought. And this is what he responds to his brothers and his family. He says, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done and saving many lives. You're going to face difficult circumstances. You're going to face people. You're going to face situation after situation. And their whole intention is to harm you, to hurt you, to bring you pain. But God is saying that he is there to redeem your suffering, to redeem your pain, that he is with you. He is weeping with you. He is walking with you through those circumstances. But the best part is that suffering and that pain wasn't for nothing, that there's a purpose and a plan through it. And as we hold on to our purpose, as we hold on to who God made us to be, looking to him, knowing that he's with us, as we grip tightly on that, we start to discover how to live in the midst of difficulty. To live in the midst of difficulty, to live in the midst of crisis. As we discover our purpose and hold on to that tightly, we see that life has meaning and the color of life starts to return. And that there's a purpose and a reason for why we're here. But I would like to challenge you. Maybe you don't know who God is. Maybe you don't have a purpose. Maybe right now you're struggling and you would rather just turn over in bed and sleep the day away. Maybe right now you're just really struggling to even go through the day. I want to encourage you to do one of two things. If you're with us right now on Facebook Live, right after this service, we're going to have a live foyer. And there's going to be a link in the comments, and there's people there that love you and are going to be there for you. Their whole goal is to talk to you and walk with you through life. And this is a safe place for you to maybe talk about some of the fears or some of the things that you're feeling. I want to encourage you to go to that. And secondly, if maybe that's a little too much for you, but you do want to reach out, you can always message us on Facebook or email us. And as you do that, we're here because we love you. We want to see you thrive. We want to see you live, not just survive. So reach out to us. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you so much for all that you do for us. Lord, that you've called us to a grand purpose, one that is not determined by our circumstances, one that is not determined by the difficult situations we go through. Lord, it is something that is much weightier and much better than that. God, help us to see it. Help us to hold on to it tightly, not to loosen our grip, but to pursue you and to know that you're with us. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Thank you so much.